Hello, everybody. Until you heal your past, your life pattern and relationships will continue to be the same. It's just the face that change. Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to the series of Soul Awakening stories of women who have rediscovered themselves and have become a queen of rediscovery. Hi, my name is Narinder Kaur. I'm a woman empowerment coach and founder of the Women Power Unleashed. And I'm on a mission to help 100,000 women to live life of dignity, self-esteem, honor, and respect. Today, we have a very special guest all the way from Victoria, Australia, Sandy Johnston. I welcome
Hello.
Sandy today. Hi, Sandy. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great, Narinder. Sorry to interrupt your intro. I'll let you get back to it. I'm just
Wonderful.
so happy to be here.
Thank you so much. It's 12:30 a.m. in Australia, and a big shout out to Sandy, and a big thanks to Sandy on coming on this platform. And you're awake in the midnight. It's great efforts from your side. I welcome you, Sandy, to this series of Soul Awakening Unleashed. Let me just give a brief about you. Sandy is the founder and host of the Tiaras and Triumph podcast and the founder of Sandy J Abundance Life Coaching. As a certified life coach as well as survivor of an abusive relationship, she has turned her pain into power. Being a writer and speaker, she uses her voice to speak up and speak about the issues of domestic violence. She now helps women who have been hurt by abuse to heal and grow themselves and become empowered to ultimately regain their lives back. Her aim is to help women rise to their highest value of rebuilding their self esteem and helping them remove their limiting beliefs to release their past so they can go on unlock their potential and love. So I welcome you, Sandy. Welcome. So,
Thank
Sandy, can
you.
you please tell our viewers about your story and how you're doing it? Such a wonderful job, which is very powerful and very much be today in the today's world. It's been a very important thing for the woman to know about that.
Sure. Look, I just want to say thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to come onto your podcast. I feel as though we are soul sisters. We have travelled very similar paths, and our journeys have are aligned in some very important ways. Um, I'm really happy to have this opportunity to talk about my journey and that has brought me here to this place. So I fell from the frying pan into the fire when I divorced my first husband, who wasn't what you would describe as being, an abusive man, but there was this hot cold aspect to him where he had anger issues which flared up, and that actually impacted on me and my mental health to the point where I was having anxiety attacks on a daily basis. So I had one child in that marriage, and when I projected forward, when I was in that place of having these horrible anxiety attacks, and I thought, is this something that I can sustain can I see myself doing this for the next 10 years? And I had to say no, I couldn't. Yeah, this is not something that was sustainable for me. So I went through a very protracted divorce. I think, divorce is never easy. It's that at that time I was still very raw, coming out of that relationship. But my heart was very open, wanting to find love again. And I think, you know, essentially we're on a quest to find love and to be loved and to be able to love other people. So I was on this quest, and I met somebody else who was very, very charismatic. He was um, he was tall, dark, and handsome, you know, and he told me all the things I've been waiting for a man to say to me, and I fell for him, hook, line, and sinker. You know, I just thought he was wonderful, and when you get into a new relationship, you are wearing these rose-coloured glasses, which make everything appear beautiful. And so when those little red flags were already there at the very beginning of the relationship, which were indicators to me to say that the behaviours weren't healthy, I ignored them because I didn't see the danger in the things that were happening. Um, so there was, you know, jealous behaviour right from the get-go. There was stalking behaviour where, you know, it was just unhealthy sort of behaviours, which were already evident right at the start of the relationship. But I just wanted to see the good and I didn't want to see the bad. And so I chose to ignore those red flags at that stage, and I vested my heart in the relationship, fully vested my heart in that relationship. And we it was very unstable right from the get-go. I, you know, had this uneasy feeling in the pit of my stomach, right? And it wasn't, you know, when you meet somebody new and you you have that infatuation and that love, you have the butterflies, that excitement that you feel that's going on inside of you. It wasn't that. It was an uneasy feeling in the pit of my stomach where I just couldn't relax in myself. And I ignored that little voice going on in my body, which was physically telling me that things weren't right. And we ended up having a child together. Then we bought a house together, which was essentially from the equity that I had. So we had our foundation, our start in life together, which had come from me. We then, there were already signs of dysfunction, and there was substance abuse, which played a big part in the problem with the abusive behaviour. And the people who have experience with somebody who has an addiction problem, and it doesn't matter what sort of addiction it is, whether it's somebody who's got a porn addiction or somebody who's got a gambling addiction or somebody who's got an alcohol addiction or some other substance addiction, all of those addictions will make for an unhealthy relationship, an unhealthy dynamic in the relationship. And this is what I experienced. And so there were different forms of abuse that crept into that relationship. There was a lot of psychological abuse. This is a conversation which is being had much more openly now, where people are recognising that coercion and manipulation and controlling behaviour is a form of abuse. A lot of people used to believe, and I was one of them, even when I was in this relationship where I believed that abuse was constituted by physical violence, and that was when people spoke about abuse, that's what abuse was. I didn't have any concept of there being some other form of abuse where my mind was being played with on a daily basis, that was a form of emotional and psychological abuse that I was being subjected to. There were other forms of abuse which crept in. Sexual abuse, there was also some physical abuse, and there was financial abuse, a lot of financial abuse that went into it as well. And I don't know if you are familiar with this statistic or not, Narinder, but I'll just run through a few statistics when it comes to abuse in relationships. That as many as 1 in 3 women have been through some form of abuse in a relationship. That's a heck of a lot of women. And, you know, you and I are sitting here having this conversation, having both been through an abusive relationship. And it's great because now we are using our voices to speak up about it. And we're finding that the more that we speak about this subject, the more women we're encountering who have had a similar experience to us. Yet when you're in that cycle of abuse, you are caught in this world of isolation where you are cut off from other, feeling as though you are the only one who is going through this. Therefore, you carry the shame and the embarrassment about being in that situation. So 1 in 3 women have been through some form of abuse. That's a lot of women. It's an unacceptable number of women who have been through abuse. It takes a woman on average 12 attempts to leave an abusive relationship. That was very true for me. I called the relationship the revolving door relationship because the door would just keep swinging and he would just keep pushing his foot back in, wearing me down and getting back in the door, and then he'd be out again. And finally, it was me who plucked up the courage to leave. And so there's a couple of statistics, but another statistic is that 99% of women who have been through some form of abuse are also financially abused. And financial abuse is one of the things which really traps women in
Correct.
situation because they become disempowered and unable to leave without being at threat of becoming homeless, without threat of becoming destitute. And this is a really, really big issue, and it's a really important issue, and this is one of the reasons why I do the work that I do now. So for those reasons, you know, that there are so many women out there who have been affected by abuse is one of the reasons why I just felt it, when COVID started and the world got turned upside down, and I saw that the rates of family violence and domestic violence and abuse were escalating and going up, and I knew that these women were caught in this isolation, and the isolation was compounded because they couldn't physically go anywhere because of all the lockdown restrictions. And I just felt the universe give me a really big nudge to start using my voice and speaking up. And that's when I started my podcast, because I thought this is just unacceptable. These women need women like me and women like you who have lived the experience to start speaking publicly about it and to give them the support that they need. So that's what I did. So I set up the podcast to create a safe space for women so I could talk, have these conversations like the conversation you and I are having now, and talk about what constitutes abuse, what it's like, that there is support out there, how to tap into support, what the red flags look like, you know, in the early days of relationships, when to leave and when it's okay to maybe stay and still work on things in the relationship. So these are all these types of things I think are really important conversations to have. And having a podcast like you and I have, I think is a great platform to have these conversations for women who will hopefully be able to tune in when it's safe for them and tap into some support to help them with the challenges that they're facing. So in the end, with me, because I sort of haven't got to that conclusion of when I exited the relationship, but things became so escalated, as they often do in abusive relationships. And quite often it's very hard to see the gradual increase in the abuse when you're in the situation. But things did get progressively worse. And when they got really noticeably worse for me was when I had the courage to go to the court and ask for an intervention order or a restraining order to put around myself and my children, to say that my ex could not have contact with us. That didn't stop him from having contact with us, because he basically used that intervention order as a bit of a joke, because he always thought that he was above the law. And so things got more dangerous for myself and the children when I did that. But I needed to do that because I needed to create a boundary for us. And thankfully, we were spared, because it did get to a point where it became life-threatening for us. And at that time, when it became life-threatening, that's when I realised I had this just light bulb went off in my head, and I went, right, I was thinking that he was the one with the problem, therefore he should be the one to leave. However, he was never going to leave us alone. So I needed to be the one to take us out of that situation, which is what I did. There was a small window of opportunity that I had when he was remanded by the police, and he was remanded for a period until his court hearing came up, and I took that opportunity to flee with the children. We had gone into hiding 5 times leading up to that to try and stay safe. And things had just gotten to the point where it was unmanageable for us to stay longer. And this is what happens to many, many women, is they get to that stage where they need to have things in place, like they need to have safety plans, they need to have a bag packed ready to exit in case it gets to that stage. And that's the stage where it got to for us. And we needed to do 2 relocations to actually be free from him and from that situation. And thankfully, after the second relocation, we were very, very fortunate because the message had gotten through. He served a couple of terms in jail for the things that he had done, and he had realised that he did not want to go back to jail. So he has given us breathing space now to heal and to move forward with our lives. So that's enabled me to be able to rebuild, and to rebuild from that place of nothing, because we basically lost everything. I lost my home, I lost my car, you know, we lost many of our belongings, and we had to just rebuild. And obviously I had to learn a lot of skills along the way with becoming very resourceful. And this is one of the things which I think women are incredibly resourceful, and that when it's needed, it's amazing what women can do. But at that time, when I was making those really hard choices to leave and to start again, I had no idea how I was going to manage. You know, there was nothing inside myself at that time. There was no voice saying, you can do this. I was a mess. I was an absolute mess at that time. I was traumatized. I was living in fear that something was going to happen to us, and it took time for me to heal and to find my feet. But I didn't do it on my own. I reached out for support, and I had a lot of support around me. I had support from the police, from the courts, from family violence services, from counselling, charitable organisations. I just didn't stop asking for support. If there was support that I could access, I asked for that support. I just knew that that was a strength. At that moment, there was, leading up to that, Narinder, I thought I had to put on this brave face. I had to be confident and pretend. I had this facade on all the time, Narinder, where it was like I was just pretending to be okay. But inside, I just wasn't okay. I was just a mess. I had absolutely no knowledge of how I was going to rebuild. But in faith, I took one step and then I took another step. And those steps, those really challenging steps that I took, have led me to where I am now. And I've come a very, very, very long way from that traumatized, broken person that I was when I exited that relationship. Now I stand strong and I have my voice back. I'm back in my own skin. I know who I am, and I don't make any apologies for who I am. And I am very happy to be who I am again now. So I'm very, very grateful to have this opportunity to be doing the things that I'm doing now.
That's amazing. And how do you help women who have been hurt by abuse? What tools do you use actually for healing?
Yeah, well, many, many, many tools. I think, where it really needs to begin is in the mind. So there's all this work that needs to be done on so many levels, and the first place to start is in the mind, because the mind is so powerful, and it doesn't matter whether you've got a negative mindset or a positive mindset. That negative mindset is just as strong and will take you in that direction as a positive mindset will take you in a positive direction. So it's about helping them to retrain their mindset, and this is a gradual process. So there will be strategies like using affirmations, but understanding that it's not enough to just reel off an affirmation and say, I'm strong, I'm beautiful, I'm worthy, I deserve this. So if I say this in this way, then my body is not going to be attuned to it. It's not going to buy it. It's not going to be convinced. It's not going to believe it. You've got to attach the right energy, the right emotion to those affirmations to really affect a lasting, sustainable change in your neuro pathways and the way that you think. So if you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, I'm strong and I am beautiful and I am worthy and I deserve this, then these things will start to integrate into your mind. And the more that you believe these things as you say them, the stronger you will become in yourself and the more healing work you will do. So I think that's a really, really good place to start. And I think because women are usually have, when they're coming out of an abusive relationship, they usually have a very overly anxious mind. So to ask somebody who's got this overly anxious mind to sit in stillness and to do like a stillness meditation or something like that, where it requires quite a bit of like discipline, it's much better to start with very simple things, because even the most simple and small step that you take, if you take that step in the right direction, it's going to lead you to where you want to go. So, a question that I ask a lot of people too is, what advice do you give women when they can't imagine a better, brighter future for themselves? Because a lot of times women will be so overwhelmed by the negativity and the trauma of their experiences that they can't see anything better ahead. They can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. To ask them to, like create this detailed vision board at that point is possibly going to be a bit too much for them. So it's about just opening their mind to the possibility that there is something better out there for them, and just maybe identifying with one thing that they can move towards, because they need to have a destination to move towards, no matter how small that destination is. So I like to start with critical needs. It's really important to make sure that those critical needs are being met first, because that's the foundation. And once you've got that foundation solid, then you've got something amazing to build on. But without that foundation, you can get very easily lost along the way, because you haven't got that stability underneath you yet.
Correct. Because the subconscious and conscious mind has to be aligned as well to feel that feelings. So, Sandy, what is the idea behind the name Tiara, Tears, and Triumphs? So, what is the real purpose and the idea behind this name? Can you please?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's very similar, I think, to your name, has a very special significance too. And the reason that I chose Tiaras, Tears, and Triumphs is because I believe that all women should rise to that value of feeling special. And also, when you wear a tiara, there's a lot of symbolism with the tiara. It definitely symbolises being valuable, but it symbolises other qualities too, like strength. There's great strength and power in having that tiara. And there's also, when you're wearing a tiara, you're in a position where you are really able to fully help other people as well. So wearing the tiara has nothing to do with Prince Charming. Prince Charming is not in this picture, okay? This is the tiara that you were born to wear without Prince Charming coming along. So that's where the tiara comes in. Then the tears, obviously, as we go through life, we go through ups and downs and we go through challenges, and we have tears of pain and tears of sorrow, and we have tears of joy. So tears are a very important part of especially being a woman and being an empathic woman full of feeling and love. There will be tears. And
Exactly.
triumphs is obviously is rising above and overcoming. So that's it in a
What
nutshell.
a beautiful name and what a beautiful meaning it has. So everything is there in that name. Very beautiful, very
Thank
powerful.
you. Thank you. I think your title for your podcast is equally as powerful too. I often used to refer to myself as being a phoenix because it was as if I kept dying, and needing to rise from the ashes and recreate myself. And I think that will speak, that title will speak to many, many women. It's beautiful.
Great. So, what kind of a podcast do you generally in what kind of a stories you generally tell in your podcast? Is it related
Uh,
to emotional healings? Is it related to
yes,
what?
yeah.
Yeah,
There's a lot of different topics. I speak to a wide variety of people on the podcast. The people who I speak to, there are a lot who have had their own personal experience with abusive relationships, but are like you and I, and they've come out the other side, and they now work to help other people. And so there's lots of tips and strategies that I cover in the podcast to help support women that are going through their challenges. And I realise that that domestic abuse and abuse is a very complex thing. And so although there will be similarities in the experiences that we've had, there will also be differences. And that's why I want to have a really broad range of different discussions and different strategies and tips available to women, because some things will speak to some women and others will speak to other women. But I talk about all different forms of abuse too on the podcast to help women to identify with abuse that they may be experiencing and help them not to feel alone in what they're going through. So a big part of what I talk about on the podcast is to please, please, please reach out and get support. Please don't be held back by feelings of fear or shame or embarrassment about your situation. There are many people who have been through it too. There are many people who are ready, willing, and able to help and support you to get you back on your feet again.
so, what is the real meaning of self-esteem as per you?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I think that self-esteem, um, in my mind, there are definite links with self-esteem to self-worth. Um, but the esteem is the thing in which you see yourself in. So that is what self-esteem is. So it is that regard that you have, or the esteem in which you hold yourself in. So if you have a low self-esteem, then you're not going to have a very high regard for yourself. And
Correct.
if you have a high self-esteem, then you are really going to value who you are, and you're going to be in a very strong position to lead a really rich and meaningful life. So if
Correct.
you've got a low self-esteem, you leave yourself vulnerable for people to take advantage of you. And it's much better to work on your self-esteem and give yourself, learn to love yourself, make friends with who you are, and accept your weaknesses, and look at things that you see as being failures as being feedback, so that you can learn from that and you can grow from that, and don't take it as something that should hold you back. Don't let that hold you back, because
Correct.
anybody who's ever been a success in their life has failed over and over and over again before they've become a success.
Correct. So, what's your success principle, Sandy? From whom you get inspired?
Oh, wow. There's, yeah, many people who inspire me. So I I have a very good friend who has she's been a mentor to me for, I could say, one famous person or another famous person, of which there are many great role models out there for us to model ourselves on. But for me, I just want to make a personal connection to somebody who's been very influential in my life through those difficult times. And this is a very good friend of mine. Her name's Terry Popper, and she has been in the life coaching business for many years now, and she started off as a personal trainer, and she has been very instrumental in helping me through challenging times, and she is such a source of inspiration for me. She's a great motivator, and she acknowledges the hard stuff, but she gives you a good, nudge to get up and keep going and learn and grow from the challenges that you're going through. So I think, if you've got a friend, it's really great to have a friend. I value her friendship so much. I know how much it's worth, because it's just helped me so much through so many challenges that I've faced. Um, but having a person, a confidant that you can talk to about not just the good stuff and saying, like, how are you? Oh, yeah, I'm fine. When you're not fine, you really, having somebody who you can actually talk openly about and share those things, and they will help and support you, but not to the point where it's like a pity party and they're feeling sorry for you, but they're actually saying, you can get through this, like, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going. And, I'm very, very grateful to her for being that inspiration in my life.
Amazing. So, what message you want to give to the women of the world?
I would love to just encourage women to make connections. Just please don't stay isolated. You don't have to be alone. There are so many ways in which you can connect, and so many safe places for women now to connect and to find the support that they need. I just encourage women to please don't suffer in silence, don't suffer alone. Know that there can be and there is a better life waiting on the other side of abusive relationships.
That's wonderful, Sandy. What a beautiful message you have given to the whole world. And one message from my side: from you begin to fly when you let go of self-limiting beliefs and allow your mind and aspirations to rise to greater heights. That was by Brian Tracy, and a beautiful message to all the wonderful women of the world to let go of their limiting beliefs, come out of the shell, and empower yourself. Thank you so much, Sandy. It was very wonderful, very impressive, and you have given such a odd timings from you. It's like she's from Australia, Victoria, and it's like 1:30 a.m. early morning in Australia. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening to the story unleashed by Sandy. So to listen and know more about the inspirational stories, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell icon. And to book one-to-one clarity sessions, you can log into my website and have a great day. Take care. See you soon. Bye-bye. Bye, Sandy. Take
Thanks,
care.
Narinder.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much. Just a second.